Hello, everybody, and welcome to Doki Doki Video Game Club. I'm Mark Sullivan.
I'm Delaila Lugo.
I'm very, very embarrassed.
This is this is actually Reap the Spoils. This is a monthly spoiler cast where we play a game and then we spoil it for you on this very show. And we're doing this in October, so we're playing some horror games, some real spooky, scary stuff. Like the game we're talking about today.
This game was scary in real life.
Yeah. It truly was. Hey,
I had to do all I could to prevent others from seeing me play it.
Lila, what game are we talking about?
Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, we're talking about a modern hit, a bit of a niche hit, but a game that took the internet by storm 4 years ago. Doki Doki Literature Club. Yeah, I'll say up front, I am gonna provide the same warning. So basically, real quick, I'll say this and then I'll say the next part. Reap the Spoils, monthly spoiler cast. We play the game, we spoil it. If you haven't played the game, I do suggest going and playing the game before you listen to the show, because we are going to spoil it, we are going to ruin it, and we don't want to take away your first experience. That being said, I'm going to provide basically the same warning that this game provides you up front, should you opt into it, because this is some really serious subject matter. And I don't really want to... I wasn't prepared for a lot of this. I really wasn't, and it got real quick.
The game gives you a warning, but then it offers the opportunity to see more warning.
Yeah.
But it contains spoilers. So
Right.
I opted out of that, and I could totally see why they had the option there. And
Yeah.
they shoved it down your throat in terms of consent. Like, I consent to play this.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to be disturbing. It's not
Right.
for kids.
So yeah, and then the game even says here, I'll read what it says on the back of the box of the physical copy, because it's the same message that pops up every time you load up into the game. This game is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. And before you even start the game, it does provide a content warning. You can say that you don't want to know the subject matter that will be talked about in the game, or you could say yes, spoilers ahead. Obviously, Spoilercast, spoilers ahead. The game features themes and content featuring depression, suicide, self-harm, and abuse. If any of those things affect you in a very serious way, don't listen to this episode and don't play the game. It's crazy. Like, it's very serious. How I think it's very well done. Personally, we'll talk about that as we get further in the episode. But it tells you, like, don't take these issues lightly. The game explores them, and yeah, the warning up front. That's I'll leave it at that. Anything else you guys want to add before we jump into it?
No.
In terms of, like, content warning or anything?
No,
No,
it's definitely worse than I thought. Like, it's not just like, oh, The Last of Us bad.
Yeah,
It's like,
no, for
I think
sure.
way worse.
Yeah, and
from personal experience, it's very realistic.
Yeah, and from I almost kind of feel bad. I hope you guys are okay. Because I'm the one that said, hey, we should play this game, not knowing the extent of the content. I knew it was going to fuck with the player. I didn't know what it was going to do that. I did not know anything about the characters and the extent that the game goes to really show those things. No idea. So my apologies to you guys if this game really fucked you up.
I mean, you didn't know. You didn't play it prior to recommending it.
Genuinely didn't. That is kind of my fault, because I tried to stay in the dark about this game for years, because I always had in the back of my mind, like, I'll get to it eventually, and then I saw this as an opportunity. Hey, it's out on consoles, let's play it. But yeah, let's get started. Let's not beat around the bush too much longer. Brief history lesson on Doki Doki Literature Club is the game released as freeware on September 22nd, 2017. So the game is 4 years old at this point. It was just released for free on itch.io and on, I don't know if Steam was the same day as itch.io, but it did release on Steam. Again, totally free. Itch.io is a indie game service where indie game developers can put their games out there, and a lot of times you can get them for free, but obviously you can pay what you want. It's kind of like Bandcamp in that regard. And then yeah, recently we got the Plus edition on consoles on June 30th, 2021. That came out on PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Series X, I think, or Series X and S, and also on PC. The physical copy just came out on this past Friday, on October 8th. That's what you see behind me if you're watching on video. It comes with a lot of goodies. Maybe on when we get to the conversation topics, I can show some of those. Just if they're relevant and just because, but yeah, it was created basically by one guy, Dan Salvato, who was known for his modding work in the Super Smash Brothers community. Kind of a weird transition going from that to this. And the art was done by freelance artists Satchley and Valinquenty, if I'm pronouncing those
It's kind of like
correctly.
what's that guy's name from Undertale?
Toby
Guy who did
Fox.
Undertale. Yeah.
Yeah, this game is largely developed by the one guy, and the art is done by those two artists, Satchley and Valinquenty. Dan Salvato kind of created templates for the characters, and then they took those templates and kind of actually made them into the sprites that we see in the game. So yeah, that's all I really got. Before we go into like the discussion of the game, I did want to read this note that's in the game. There's a specific ending you can get if you do something specific that unlocks this note from Dan Salvato, and I kind of wanted to open the episode by reading it, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
And
Don't think I got this one because this one required you to like successfully romance all three of them, right, or something like that.
at the same time,
Yeah.
basically, like you had to have a save at the very beginning of the game and
Yeah.
run through until like this big inciting incident that occurs, but just before that, save there, then romance another girl, save there, romance the third girl, and then continue, and then by the end you'll unlock this special ending in this note. And I do still encourage anyone that enjoyed the game enough and could potentially get through it enough to do this, to explore and unlock all the notes and all the pieces of art and stuff that the game offers, because I found it really rewarding and fun to do. Maybe that's just because I'm a masochist and I enjoyed playing through this very fucked up game multiple times. But I still encourage you to unlock this note for real. But I kind of want to read it out because I feel like it's an important message about this game. So are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To the special player who achieved the special ending. For years, I have been enamored by the ability of visual novels and games in general to tell stories in ways not possible using traditional media. Doki Doki Literature Club is my love letter to that. Games are an interactive art. Some let you explore new worlds. Some challenge your mind in broad new ways. Some make you feel like a hero or a friend, even when life is hard on you. Some games are just plain fun, and that's okay too. Everyone likes different kinds of games. People who enjoy dating sims may have a heightened empathy for fictional characters, or they might be experiencing feelings that life has not been kind enough to offer them. If they are enjoying themselves, then that's all that matters. That goes for shooting games, casual games, sandbox games, anything. Preferences are preferences, and our differences are the reason we have a thriving video game industry. My own favorite games have always been ones that challenge the status quo. Even if not a masterpiece, any game that attempts something wildly different may earn a special place in my heart. Anything that further pushes the limitless bounds of interactive media. I extend my true gratitude to all those who have taken the time to achieve full completion. I hope you enjoyed playing it as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for being a part of my literature club. Love, Dan Salvato.
So that's what that trophy was. I was like, who the hell's
Yeah.
Dan and Paula?
Yeah. Again, I felt okay with reading this because, you know, the game's been out for 4 years. That letter's out there. And not everyone might feel comfortable going through and doing full completion. But I felt that the message that he wanted to put out there was important to share.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wanted to kind of open the episode with that. So that being
I'd be
said, yeah,
curious to hear like from him like what his motivations were for going the route he did with this game, you know?
we'll get into that.
Oh,
But
okay.
let's I guess let's dive into the the story of this game if you guys are ready. Are you guys okay?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Look,
fine.
I'm just laughing because the entire time I'm playing this game, my fiance is in the other room, you know, doing her work, and every time she's coming out of the office, I'm like, no, you're good in there, you're good in there, just chill. I don't want you to
Well,
see
see,
the big girls with big anime busts, we'll say, in schoolgirl outfits on the screen. It's fine.
well, Jason, as Dan Salvato's note points out, there's no shame in playing a game like that and liking it. You know, it's okay. And
Look,
I also wanna go ahead and start off with this is a very serious game with very serious subject matter. This is like I like to look at this game as a lighthearted like video game fucking comedy power hour. Uh, if we laugh and have fun and make jokes or whatever, it doesn't mean we didn't look at this stuff seriously. It's just we got to make light of like some serious shit.
Well, also that's the facade of the game. The game
Right.
is presenting itself to be an
it's
anime waifu dating simulator.
it's subverting, yeah, it's subverting the expectations of like your traditional slice of life Japanese. What's the term for it? Something novel, interactive novel or electronic novel or whatever.
Yeah, it's a visual novel.
Visual novel, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. It's and this game is often looked at a satire, and that's kind of to get back to Delilah's question. That kind of was part of Dan Salvato's influence behind creating this game. Was he? I mean, he talks in this note about wanting to kind of go against the status quo and looking at other typical like anime style visual novels. They all just have these very clear cut anime girl templates, and you romance them however you want, and they have like a similarly happy ending every time. It's just like kind of a different backdrop every single time. And that's not to say with every single visual novel that's the case. It's just with most that's kind of the situation. And with this, he really wanted to kind of critique that genre, right? He kind of wanted to say like, yeah, he wanted to fool the audience into thinking that this was just like every other visual novel. And a lot of people that probably downloaded it thought like, oh, this looks cute. It's like a bunch of other visual novels I played. Well, I'll check it out. And then, bam, Sayori hacks herself. You know, it's a very big, knee jerk, very big like almost whiplash moment of, oh, this is not like all that other material that I've played. This is something very different.
And the good thing about that is it became my first quote unquote dating sim.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played a game like this before. I've played games with elements of it, like Fire Emblem or whatever, but never a proper dating sim. But I also, at the same time, and we'll get into why, but like I felt a little manipulated in a sense,
Yes.
because it shoved some themes down your throat in a way that it was like not even intense. I could see it being intense for someone that maybe is dealing with that or has dealt with that in some way, shape, or form. But it just felt unnecessary. Like I got after that first ending is when I was like, okay, I get it. And then after that, I was just like, okay, what?
Yeah, to that point of manipulation, I will say that he very much understands the various archetypes that are used in this kind of writing and these kinds of games. and by writing me generally like manga, romance novels, etc. I mean, he even explicitly at one point the game does break the fourth wall, and it even comments on
Several
the nature
points.
of the archetypes that each of the characters occupies, and the the game developer, he does use those archetypes pretty expertly, I would say, to actually manipulate the player to go down a route that he thinks you're going to go down, and then know that you're also going to have emotional sympathies elsewhere, and manipulate those sympathies to make certain events even more impactful. Um, yeah, but can I ask you guys, at what point did you realize that it was gonna that well, you know what, I'll let Mark, since you're in charge of this. I had two questions, but I feel like it would kind of like go all over the place. You're more organized than I am.
Okay. What?
Oh, all right. I'll ask my first question. At what point
Oh
did you
yeah, I
realize?
thought you were gonna ask. I'm sorry.
What point did you realize? Because it doesn't explicitly say mental health. It just says disturbing images, or at least I don't remember it saying explicitly mental health. But I won't. At least I didn't know it at first going in. But I picked up fairly early that that was what was going on. At what point did you guys kind of
It's
realize that was what was going on?
it's specified in the beginning depression and anxiety without like that wasn't like going into the spoiler zone where you can see
I don't
about the I
remember
think
that.
yeah, it was like very brief. The same exact message that Mark said minus the like suicide and self-harm piece.
Yeah.
It did mention depression and
I just remember it
anxiety.
saying small children and disturbing images.
Well,
That too.
there's the whole thing, but where you could opt into the more detailed content warnings.
Oh, I didn't do any. Yeah.
But it still tells you like this game features very mature and serious themes. These are not to be taken lightly. And then you could opt in to have more detailed explanations of what those were. And then yeah, like Delaila mentioned earlier, you can go into settings and you can turn on warnings during the game while those things are coming up. But and then also asking like by clicking I agree, like you consent to playing this game, and
Yeah.
then
But
it pushes you into the deep end.
But to answer your question, like even without that warning, when I started reading the notes, I started to feel like there was something going on with all of the women that we were
Yeah.
introduced to. Literally the first few notes, although the only one that wasn't as obvious was maybe the little pink-haired one, Natsuki, I think is there.
Natsuki. Yeah.
Natsuki.
For me,
She's
with
the only
her,
one, yeah.
yeah, for me, with her, as soon as somebody mentioned her dad relatively early on, I was like, oh, see what's going on there.
See,
Yeah.
I actually, yeah. So I didn't realize Natsuki's whole situation for a while, really after I beat the game, because I didn't really talk to Natsuki much through my initial playthrough. The person I was mainly trying to romance through the first act of the game was Yuri.
Of course, everybody, the game is manipulating you to go for Yuri.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense
That's what I mean when I talk about the archetypes. She is literally the archetype, and the game wants you to do that because Sayori is the girl next door archetype.
Yeah.
That is supposed to be, you know, the person that's always there that you never fully appreciated, and only at the end do you realize how much you truly cared about them. So it's trying to get you to that crossroads point. Yeah.
And with Natsuki being kind of a tsundere archetype, she just had the most unappealing personality, I feel. I wouldn't be surprised
Man.
if
She tried to tell me she was into fantasy and Tolkien and shit, and I was like, "Oh, cool." And then she's into like weird horror stuff. I'm like, "What is this?"
well, that's Yuri. Yuri was into that stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
And
chose her if she didn't say the fantasy worlds and stuff.
Right.
well, and I will say, we'll talk about the side stories more later, but the side stories really delve more into like Yuri, or all the characters. They really dive into all the characters, but like Yuri goes like all out on like the fantasy stuff that she's into during one of the side stories, and like tries to get Sayori interested, And like she's even giving her paper like, here, this will really help for you to like draw out like family trees and maps of the world and like timelines and stuff of this fantasy world. And Sayori's like, oh my god, what have I gotten myself into? We'll talk about those a little more later, but like yeah, Sayori does kind of bait and switch you in the main game by like saying she's into fantasy, but lately she's been reading horror.
Or Yuri, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Yuri. But yeah, I feel like I totally lost my train of thought. With Natsuki, yeah, I didn't really talk to her much on my first playthrough, so I actually didn't find out about her situation until I was reading more online, and then when I went back through and played through again and actually talked to her, yeah, I actually, her whole deal was that her father's abusive. Yeah. And I actually thought that was Yuri's deal in addition to her self-harm tendencies because of the comment about her back pain. I thought
I have a feeling only women would really get that right. Exchange. Yeah.
It's just a subtle joke about her having larger breasts than the rest of the group.
And also I thought that too as well, because the moment where you're doing art together for the festival, she insisted that you guys go to your place instead of her place.
Too. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, something's going on at home.
Mm-hmm. That's also what made me think that. And I guess it was just because she didn't want you to see her large knife collection, I suppose. I guess that's what we're supposed to gather from that. But yeah, I guess let's talk about just the end of the big. Jason, you asked, like, you wanted to know what, like, when did we clue into like something bigger was going on?
So the first question you guys both answered was when you guys realized the mental health stuff, and when you realized when you picked up on the fourth wall breaking stuff, and ultimately realized that what like was actually going on.
The mental health stuff was basically for me, it was when on the third day when you go to Sayori to talk to her and she opens up to you about her depression. And that's when I kind of was like, okay, now, or really, you could go even a little bit before that when she was just having a bad day and decided to leave early, and you didn't get to read poems together with her. I guess that was really more so the first point of like, okay, something different is going on here. But really, the depression conversation was the bigger point, and the fourth wall breaking stuff. Really, as soon as it ended and you go back to the main menu and the new game button is broken and Sayori's model on the main menu is distorted, and that's that's really the first point where the game kind of makes it clear. Actually, even before that,
I was gonna say that
because go ahead, Delaila.
No, I was just gonna say the moment when Monica is like, "Oh, by the way, you should save." Like in the middle of random dialogue, she's like, "Oh, you should save." And one of her poems was like, "Load me" at the very end. It was like dot dot dot, a bunch of spaces, and then load me. And I was like, "Huh?" And she's the only one that you couldn't romance. Like you couldn't write a poem for her. So I was like, okay, there's something like meta going on here that I'm not aware of. But I didn't realize how meta it would be until like it happened.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And I got let's talk about that. Let's talk about Monica. Did you guys realize that Monica? So what did you guys initially gather about Monica, and like kind of when did you start to realize it?
So I actually picked up on both of the questions. The reason I asked you guys, I'm just curious. Because I picked up on it really early. In fact, I thought it was almost a misdirect.
Okay.
And I thought that the game was actually going to play with your expectations about mental health. And you would think that these were just some crazy girls, and in fact, it would actually be some horrific like cult or some shit, like some actual like horror like shit.
Surprise! The Silent Hill sequel. I didn't.
And this isn't fair to the game. This isn't fair to the game because what the game is doing, it does well. Like if I'm being objective about it. But personally, I was just a little disappointed when it was revealed that no, it is just a fourth wall break, and it's the game kind of being self-aware, and it's manipulating these personality archetypes to fuck with their mental health. I was kind of like, man, because I thought that was like a misdirect, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So what did you notice about Monica that kind of clued you in?
Just the well, first of all, she's so of the archetypes, she's the dream girl archetype, and you can't romance her. So, and the fact that, like Delaila was saying, she's constantly saying, "Make sure to save your game," and she's constantly making comments about like the funny nature of things. Um, just all throughout, it seemed she was rather off compared to all the other characters, and that's what roused my suspicion. And it was pretty much confirmed reading her poems, like you said. Like her poems kind of spell it out. Um, and then it really, really confirms it when she sits down and talks to Sayori, because I was like, okay, she manipulated Sayori to do something, and at that point, I had already been anticipating Sayori to kill herself.
Yeah.
It actually happened later than I thought it would.
Okay.
Which funny enough, at that point, I switched back from Yuri to trying to romance Sayori because I could see from 100 miles away that she was fucked up, like she was hiding that she was fucked up. And I felt bad.
Did you tell her that you loved her?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it uses it again. Yeah, and then it uses it against you and all that.
Can I ask Cal, because I actually didn't tell her I loved her because I thought that would do more harm than good. But it seems like either way, that's her.
Yeah, either
her
way,
fate.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
it's the same result no matter what. And
but how does it play out, if you don't mind? Like,
you blame yourself for putting that burden on her.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like saying that telling her that you love her, like the protagonist comes to the like when he's in the room and sees it, he's like, I shouldn't have confessed. That wasn't what she needed at that moment. And then like saying that you're one of my best friends, or you'll always be one of my best friends, or whatever the other option is. It's why didn't I tell her how I feel? Like, I could have done so much more. I should have been there for her when she needed it. It ultimately,
Okay.
yeah, it ultimately didn't matter. And it's the same. It's still the same thing if you romance Sayori throughout the entire thing. If every poem is for her, and you see all her CGs and spend the most time with her, it's always the same. It's the same
Gotcha.
result.
Yeah, like I knew that she had suicidal thoughts just because she always said like things like, "Oh, I want to disappear," or like, "Oh, I wish I wasn't here," like very like subtle things. But this is where the manipulation comes in. Is like, well, you guys know, but like I'm actually a licensed therapist, and so I dealt with this kind of stuff a lot. Um, and I saw the signs and I felt like the game didn't give me, and it wasn't supposed to. I guess that wasn't the purpose of the game, but I felt like I didn't have the opportunity to kind of like intervene and like explore those like passive suicidal statements. And so when it happened that like, okay, like I thought I was saying the right thing by like, oh, we're friends, we've always been this, like, let's stay this. I had a feeling it was going to happen, but it did happen suddenly to me. And I felt manipulated because like there was no option to like fix that. And I think that's fucked up. But I guess the game is purposefully trying to be that way. I just feel like the game doesn't give people that deal with that enough credit, that there is safety in place and there are things like there is human dialogue and there are human interventions and professional interventions that can actually help someone not get there. And sometimes they're a lot more robust than the game makes it out to be.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Especially with young girl, like in the real world, young girls tend to give more cries for help as opposed to, say, boys who tend to just do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate an unfortunate side effect of our society.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hadn't even considered that, Delilah, you'd be coming at this from a whole different angle because of your career.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, and I posted like my reaction to like very specific moments in the first ending, to the point where Sayori kills herself, because I did cry, and I mostly it's not even that I like was connected to her in a crazy way. There was so many times where I would leave work after having to deal with someone that had passive suicidal thoughts, and not know if the next day I would come in if they would have actually off themselves,
Yeah.
And so that to me, like for then it to just happen suddenly was just kind of like it was a bit much. And I don't want you to feel bad for recommending this game. Like I'm totally fine.
I do feel bad.
Like it was just like I feel like had it been me and I had more control over the situation in this game, things would have not played out that way.
Yeah.
But also sometimes no matter what you do, if a person's going to do something, they're going to do something, and so the game did kind of touch on that. It's a hard thing to wrestle with for me personally, just because of that. But
no, totally understood.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
No, don't be. It's fine. I think it's important. I think the game could have done what it intended to do in a better way.
Okay.
But I still feel like it's important that some people see this kind of reality in this way, because I think some people will only understand it by playing this game.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make things awkward.
No.
No.
No, it's oh god, this is like such a hard game to talk about. It's simultaneously easy because there's so much to talk about, but it's like hard because like you gotta like we have to handle these things with tact, right? Like this is very serious shit. And then yeah, I feel really bad that I didn't know and couldn't give you guys a better warning.
Yeah,
but
the game gave me the option, but because I'm someone that I don't personally suffer from anything other than anxiety, I felt like I was equipped to go into this no matter what, but I hadn't realized that it would bring back some of the interventions that I've done as a therapist, and how like the game kind of stripped all those skills away from me. But it's a game at the end of the day, so I can't like really bitch about it, but there's just some things that I think had it been reality would have gone differently, but it's not reality.
And
so.
it's also hard because like, this game, it's a visual novel. It's created with the goal in mind of kind of satirizing and kind of flipping that genre on its head. And with that specific end goal in mind, like it had to have the pieces there to get there, right? And it had they implemented some sort of way, steps for you to come to that realization sooner and kind of avoid it, it kind of defeats a lot of what the game was going for. And that's ultimately with this all being manipulated by Monica to begin with, so she could romance the player. Spoilers, we haven't gotten there yet, but we're about to. So, like, I get what you're saying, and I understand why they didn't do that, but again, you're coming from a totally different perspective, where this is stuff that you have, like, firsthand experience with and very regular experience with, and you picked it up way sooner because of that experience, and for you to kind of... I have to imagine the feeling of helplessness there was terrible.
Yeah, it was. And also not, like, in a less deep way, the game forced me to be a horny boy, which I am not, clearly. And it wasn't until the very end with Monica, which we'll get into, where she acknowledged that I might be a girl, but doesn't matter or whatever. Like, I feel like this game was made to more for like dudes that maybe watch hentai. You know what I'm saying? Like dudes that fetishize anime girls, which I'm not that. And so it was just weird.
I'm in the same boat as you.
Same, by the way. I better speak now, huh? But like, yeah, the point that they if it had been something that wasn't like that, like there's so many visual novels that are, like people go into them expecting to like romance girls as like a horny boy, and like if this game had not like given itself that presentation, that appearance, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective. Right? It wouldn't have fooled us for so long up until it was too late to turn back. And that, I guess, it kind of makes sense that disconnect. It's one of those things that I understand, but it's not really something that they could do differently, I feel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would compromise the effectiveness of what it was trying to do.
Yeah, and to your point about not giving, like with Sayori, because Sayori, it kind of starts coming on a little earlier, I think, than the game, and well, not necessarily than the game intends, because they give you. I don't remember if it was the first or second. No, it was the second poem, because the first one was relatively fine. There were some very subtle things if you want to read into it after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's really the second poem where she starts talking about taking all the stuff out of her brain for her friends, like cookies out of her brain, which is the cookie jar in her head, and then she feels empty. Like that's the point where I was like, okay, she's hiding some shit, or she's her joyous exterior is covering a very troubled interior.
And even when you look at her as a character, her whole character is based around making her friends happy, and she puts out that outward positive energy. She just wants everyone to get along, everyone to be happy. And she always has a smile on her face. But when she talks about her poetry preferences, she likes happy things, but she also likes sad things. And we see the happy in her. So where's the sad coming from? Yeah. Right? And that's and obviously we get we get the explanation of her of her depression, and that's kind of where it's like, oh, there it is.
And even when you're creating the poem for the girls, I don't know how you can perfect it the first time to get the good ending, because you don't really know that like choosing a word like suicide would bing Sayori. And I did that thinking it was like related to horror for Yuri. And she jumped instead, so that's when I was like, huh, interesting. So they did make it like pretty clear if you chose like specific things in the poem. But I don't think you had a way of knowing that would have like led to her
no, of course not. Yeah.
Romance.
Yeah. And I speaking about the poetry mechanic right now, because it's really the only, like, I wouldn't say the only, but like it's the main gamified mechanic in this whole thing, where when you go to construct a poem, you select 20 words, and each word appeals to a specific girl. So you kind of can lean your poems more towards like Yuri's preferences, more towards Sayori's preferences, more towards Natsuki's preferences. Not Monica's at any point until later, but we'll talk about that momentarily. But you kind of get to know in talking to the girls, like they'll actually, when they talk to you, they'll actually say in their sentences, some of those words will pop up in what they say. And when you see those words again, like you kind of make that mental connection of, oh, you know what? Yuri said this word when I was talking to her. She probably likes this word. And bing, you press it, she pops up, and okay, that's going to appeal to Yuri. And I really like that. It rewards you for like paying attention to what the girls are saying.
Right.
And if you want to romance a specific one, like it really helps. So
yeah.
And you just get to know their general preferences, like Natsuki likes really simple to the point things and cutesy things, Sayori happy and sad, and Yuri, she's the one that I felt was the easiest to pin down, because she really liked, I sure. I don't necessarily disagree with that either, I don't, but like she likes more complicated language and stuff that is typically more grim as well. But
I think it's fun from a gameplay mechanic that it does slip words in there that, like, technically speaking, if you're listening to everything that the characters are saying and you know about them, they could fit multiple characters. So, for instance, the one I'm thinking of off the top of my head is adventure, which I originally picked. It was either adventure or fantasy. I originally picked for Yuri because she had mentioned like liking fantasy books.
Yeah.
And it turned out that it was a Sayori word,
Mm-hmm.
which I was like, okay.
That happened to me so many times when I was doing when I was trying to get the perfect poems for each girl. And I would select a word that I'm like, feel like that's a Yuri word, and Sayori would pop up, and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Because it's like a grim word, but like like Delaila, again, to your point, like it's a grim word, and like you would think it would be associated with one person, and when another character pops up, you're like, that's odd. I wonder if there's
Yeah.
something deeper to that. And usually there is, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But I want to go back to Monica because I didn't get to share the first moment I really realized that something was up with Monica. Is from the title screen. She's the only character that has black stockings.
Ah,
All
I
the
didn't
other
notice
characters
that.
have white socks. She's got black socks.
Wow.
Visually, she's a different character. She's a much different character from the others. And then obviously when she starts sharing her poems, there something's off about them. You know, the one where you mentioned Delaila, where at the end she says "load me,"
Mhm.
and like her poems just tend to be they were
Quite a pun.
huh.
I said it's quite a pun.
What's quite a pun?
Load me.
What is that? I'm confused.
Jesus Christ. Just continue, Mark.
All right, I'm not gonna explore that. Yeah, her visuals are different. I was also reading some other subtle things that, and these were all intentional, for obvious reasons, but other subtle things about Monica versus the other girls, like she's the only character where her sprite, her model is always facing directly towards the player. All other characters are kind of off to the side whenever they show on screen. Monica's the only one that's facing forward.
Mm.
She's also the only one when you go to share your poetry with them. She's the only one that kind of has idle chit chat with you before you share poems. All the others go right into reading your poem
Mhm.
and give you your feedback. There's a lot of just subtle differences in your interactions with Monica than the interactions with the other girl. And another big one is that all the other names are like Japanese names or like potential Japanese names, you know, and that's trying to fit that typical archetype of the Japanese schoolgirl visual novel that so many people are familiar with. Monica is not a Japanese name.
Yeah.
And Monica actually stands for something.
Mm.
What the hell? I had it up. What does it stand for? Hold on.
You mean the name's an acronym or the meaning of the name?
Her name stands for. Hold on.
Oh, like an AI acronym, kind of.
Kinda, because the whole big
Yeah.
reveal with Monica, we'll go ahead and talk about it. I guess is that Monica is an NPC, and she's non-romanceable, and she wants to be. And
Which is extremely. I find it very clever of him too to make Monica kind of the polar opposite of the Sayori girl next door archetype, the dream girl archetype, who is supposed to be the unobtainable one, and it's the unobtainable one that actually wants the player actively and is actively killing essentially your loved ones to have you. Yeah.
And what's also interesting is that she what was I gonna shit? I just lost my train of thought again while I'm trying to check this for myself.
It would be like if in American Pie the foreign exchange student killed the band camp girl.
Yeah, like she's trying to it's what's kind of ironic about it is that she criticizes and calls Yuri the typical yandere, which is another character archetype that in order to be with the person she loves, she'll do anything, including kill people. And she's like, Yuri's kind of a yandere. Ahaha.
There's another one for
Monica is the yandere, very clearly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
There's another one she uses for Natsuki. I forget. Basically, the standoffish one. These are more like slice of life manga things. I'm not too familiar with, but
Tsundere.
Right. So, yeah, okay. I found it. Jeez, sorry it took me so long, and I was flustering through that whole thing. So at the end of the game, so I guess let's talk about the ending before I talk about this. Right? Is that in the second act, everything starts to go like really fucking bonkers, right? When you're talking to some of the girls, like some of their text becomes like highlighted in black, and it's like very angry and totally out of place, and it can even trail off the text box.
it's
And
like out of nowhere, it just says, "My dad's gonna beat the shit out of me if you find out I
yeah,
read manga." Yeah.
every time that happened, I got chills. Every time anything got fucked up in Act 2, I got chills, and it freaked me the fuck. Like, that's why this game, I feel, is really and like, listening back to our Silent Hill episode while I was editing it, like, we talked about how we found more horror in like the just creepiness and like the discomfort an area we'd walk into would give us. And that's what Dan Salvato wanted to do with this game. He wanted to scare not through like jump scares and just like shit being shoved in your face, but through uncomfortable situations, discomfort,
And
having
he uses music really well to that
Oh
point
my
too, because
god.
for most of the game you have that kind of just that really soft piano melody that you would expect from this sort of this sort of virtual novel thing. And then whenever something happens, like you open the door and there's Sayori is hanging from the ceiling, the music just stops, and there's just
Yeah.
kind of a what's the term called when you slam the cover down on the piano keys and all the keys just
Yeah.
ring. You just get that noise, and then it's just silence. Like it's very understated but very effective.
and even
Also,
go ahead, Delilah.
oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say right before that, like right before when you go to the school before you go to Sayori's house to check in on her, it just no music plays. And I actually thought my game was bugging, so I'm like over here like trying to troubleshoot, and someone on my stream was like, no, it's supposed to be quiet. And I was like, oh, okay. And then right after, like they have that piano thing that you just explained. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called. Then it cuts immediately to the main menu with that cheerful music. And so for like a week, I had this music in my head with the image, because the imagery was pretty intense in this game,
Yeah.
especially for Sayori's death. Like just the way she looked, the color palette, like her eyes. It just like it made me disturbed, just like Dan intended to.
And it almost like the aesthetic is almost completely different there, right? Because like previously it's all just still sprites where they're just kind of like they'll just immediately change to their other position and then change back, and like they just kind of like transition to other images and whatnot. And that one is like kind of animated. It's like the animation style somewhat changes, and when the music starts back up, it becomes distorted. It's like it's the same cutesy music that was playing, but it's distorted and almost like in a different key. But really,
Yeah.
they're just like kind of changing the pitch and speeding it up and slowing it down just to fucking unnerve you.
Yeah.
And that happens during the act 2 all the time, and it's so effective because like a character will glitch and glitch in and out on screen, or like blocks will cover their face and the music will like start distorting itself at times. um the one of the scariest, again, and we're talking about fear through the discomfort, right? And that's really what he wanted to go for, and we all said that worked really well in Silent Hill, and I felt it worked even better here.
Yeah.
There's in Act 2 you have to go through Natsuki and Yuri having like their fight and eventually side with one of them, and you select one of their names and it just kind of zooms in a little bit on them, and you have to choose it again, and you select a name and it zooms in on them a little bit more, and you just keep doing that, and it zooms in and zooms in and zooms in and zooms in until suddenly Monica's face is right up in your face.
Yeah.
That scared the shit out of me. And the music is like getting faster and more distorted the whole time, and then as soon as Monica's in your face, it stops. The music stops.
Yeah.
And then it zooms back out and she's like normal size, but she's in front of your text box. And she's like, "Hey, can you step outside?" And like small shit like that, you know? You wouldn't think it would be terrifying, but it kind of is when you just went through 2 hours of a cutesy normal visual novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
There's
them to
also stuff.
use.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say for them to use those subtle details, and in a game like this where you don't have atmosphere in the way that we have Silent Hill, and to still cause that level of disturbance is pretty, like, that's amazing. Like, that's a feat in its own. But yeah, go ahead.
All I was gonna say was, like, just to add to what Mark was saying about the shit with Monica. At one point, you had to make a choice. I don't remember if it was whose house to go to or which one it was. But if you tried to choose Monica, it would switch out Monica with somebody else, and you could keep going through the menu to try to get to Monica, and it would keep switching the thing around.
Did you quickly switch to another name and select it before it could change to Monica? Oh my god. If you do that, Delaila, did you do that?
I didn't know you could.
That was the first thing I tried to do, and oh, Jesus Christ. If you do that, if you switch to another name and select it before it can change to Monica, the whole screen disappears. It's just white, and there's just 2 eyes.
Oh my god.
That just show up there. It just the music stops. It's just a white screen, and there's just 2 eyeballs.
Shit, what the hell?
Staring at you, and then it gives you like 8 different choice selections for Monica.
Wow.
So you have no choice but to pick Monica, and then as soon as you pick one, it goes back to the normal game, and Monica's there, and she's like, "Yay, you picked me!" Fuck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's stuff like that. It's in like the quick cuts, right? The quick cuts to just this fucking horrifying image that's just like it's nothing that should be as nearly as terrifying as it is, but the way that it goes about doing those transitions and doing them so quickly, it's coupled in with the music, even the environments at some point. I remember there was one conversation with Yuri that I was having where I noticed something was off about the background, and I went and checked one of my screenshots. The whole room was on a slant, and it wasn't like that before.
That's
Wait,
cool.
I'm like,
quick question, because you guys haven't brought it up, and I don't know if this was unique to my playthrough. Did Yuri kill herself in your playthrough?
Yes.
Okay.
That's another thing that does that's intended to happen. Because in Act 2,
because that applies. What you were just saying applies directly to that, where it's like she asks if you love her, and at that point, I was kind of like, all right, I'm just trying to distance myself from this. She already got my one friend killed, so I said no, and then she almost had her face. There's no animation; her face just pops, kind of like in anime when like little sweat bead comes down, and then all of a sudden she just fucking stabs us. It's like out of nowhere,
and it's because Monica in Act 2 she becomes even more desperate because she in their first playthrough you tried romancing Sayori, and she made Sayori kill herself. She fucked with the game script and made it so Sayori would kill herself, and
Skynet has become self-aware.
Sorry,
I said Skynet has become self-aware.
and then in Act 2. Nothing has changed except for Sayori's gone. You're still only romancing either Yuri or Natsuki, so she becomes even more desperate, and she starts changing the game script to the point where she's fucking up the game. That's why all those glitches are happening and all that weird stuff is happening, and she's messing with her friends, to kind of amplify their trauma, right? Like she makes Yuri's self-harm so much worse, to the point where anytime she goes to make tea, she goes and indulges in her self-harm. And it's so disturbing when you go out, follow her out into the hallway, and you see the sprite of her with her arms exposed, and then the game quickly rewinds back to the classroom, and it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, the escalations of Yuri, like where like as you're romancing her again, if you do, and she's like, I'm just bathing in the warmth of your body heat, and the confrontation in front of the closet where she's just like staring at you with like a totally different face on her, and she's just staring until Natsuki comes and interrupts the moment. And then yeah, that confrontation where no matter what you say when she asks you if you love her, yes or no, I either through disappointment or just out of excitement, yeah, she just takes out a knife and stabs herself repeatedly.
Mm.
Um, and then you have to do there's a couple ways you can get through. Then Jason, earlier when we were talking, you said you didn't know what to do. I thought you were talking about you were just spamming buttons. I thought you were talking about this moment where you have to just kind of sit in the classroom with her body for an entire weekend. And I
Yeah.
actually was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. And Katie actually pointed out to me that as I kept like trying to reload the save, she said, "Well, the background's changing."
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the quick way to advance through the weekend is to just keep reloading the save because it will continue to advance time. Or you could just use the skip feature.
Yeah.
I just kept hitting X at that point. I
Yeah.
was trying at first to see if because her texts, yeah, like you said, get scrambled and it's all code. I was trying to see if there was some like pattern in there, so you could try
Yeah.
to read some of it. I couldn't pick up on anything.
I
though.
did that for a little while until I was like, okay, there's clearly nothing here, but what the fuck am I supposed to do? And should also note that Natsuki, while her trauma and her issues kind of get amplified a little bit, she starts to become aware that something's wrong with Monica, and she starts getting really worried about Yuri.
Yeah.
And did either of you see the scene with Natsuki in that second part of the game where she asks you to play with her?
No.
The only scene I had individually with Natsuki, my second time through, I was trying to romance her, but for some reason it kept pushing me back to Yuri.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
But I did get a scene where like we read manga together, and that was pretty much it.
There's a scene you can get where she starts begging you to play with her, and her face becomes all blanked out, and she suddenly snaps her neck and then
Oh.
rushes towards the camera.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is it's cool. It's fucking terrifying. But
Yeah,
like, it was again an effective scare. But yeah, like Natsuki starts to become kind of aware that something else is going on, and then after sitting in the classroom for the weekend with Yuri, Monica shows up. She's like, "Oh my god, I fucked it up so bad that you had to sit here for the weekend. Hold on, let me fix this." And then she just straight up deletes Natsuki and Yuri, restarts the game, and you're alone with Monica. Where the big reveal happens, where she became self-aware and has elevated access within the game, and she's not in love with the player character. She's in love with you, the
So,
player.
can I say something about this?
Yeah.
There was that moment where she pulls your PSN and calls you by your PSN.
Yeah.
But because my name in the game was Assassina and my PSN is Assassina-san, I was like, wait. It actually threw me off for a moment. I thought that like I was actually being like hacked or something.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't realize that like because the names were so close to each other. Had my PSN been like something completely different from the name that I chose, then I would have been like, oh, okay, she's pulling from my PSN. But it took me a while to realize that, which I thought was a really cool detail regardless. But yeah, it fucked with me for a moment.
Yeah. Question, Delaila. Did she bring up the fact that you were streaming during that conversation?
No. And
Okay.
I wonder if it's because I was streaming through a capture card.
Yeah.
But does she?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
On the original, at least on the original and I don't know if it's if you stream directly off like the PlayStation's like built-in streaming capability.
No.
But I know on the original, because there's videos of it, you can go and find them, and I watched it because I wanted to see what would happen. Oh my god. She can recognize certain capture software. And she'll comment like, "Oh, hi everyone. I'm kind of nervous. I don't usually like to be on camera. I bet you guys were expecting a jump scare or something. And then she's like, aha, just kidding. I don't know how to do. And then she cuts herself off, and it zooms in on her face, and her face becomes all distorted for a jump scare.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I hadn't realized how sophisticated that ending sequence was until I posted my Doki Doki video and then I got recommendations. And some guy, I didn't watch the whole video, but some guy had like not played for 3 years, and then he went back in, and her eyes were all bloodshot, and she was like, "Oh, it's you. Huh, you remembered me." And I'm like, wow, like that's the part of the game besides like the little subtle disturbing things that they do that I thought was really fascinating. And now I'm curious to like go down a rabbit hole to see like what else Monica says or reacts to or does.
It keeps going, man, because I was telling Mark beforehand, I had no idea like how to get past. I hadn't put it together that menu that you unlock in the opening screen, you can actually go in and it will let you manipulate files, which is the solution at the end of the game. Is you need to delete Monica's character file.
Yeah,
I didn't know that, so I was essentially just sitting on the couch for over an hour, just hitting X, and Monica's just saying shit to me, and I was getting angry. I was like, God damn, I get it. Come on. And then eventually I just looked it up, and I just felt like an idiot because, as Mark pointed out, she does say a few times, like, it's so easy just going into the menu.
And you even see the console when she deletes Natsuki and Yuri. You see the console in the corner. It says, like, Natsuki.chr deleted, Yuri.chr deleted. And she brings up, like, it was so easy to delete them. I just, like, went into the file system and deleted them.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, right? Because we all played the Plus edition that just came out recently. Back when this game came out in 2017, it was just released as an executable. And
you actually had to go into the code.
You actually had to go into your computer's file system and delete the file, like, from the game itself.
That's cool.
And like I even tested it out. I've downloaded the freeware version for Mac, and I went and looked at the package contents, and there's even some stuff in there that isn't in the Plus version, or stuff that you can't see, I should say. That ties into something we'll talk about later, like probably towards the end. Monica's character file has an image attached to it, and it's like a black square with like a fuzzed out square in the center and a red like fiery circle around it. And I think it's Natsuki's file has this distorted, altered image. It's like a kind of a grayscale image that like has had some editing done to it, and like someone undid the editing that was done to it, and it reveals a portrait of like a blonde-haired, like pupilless woman. And we'll talk about that a little later, about what the community thinks that stuff is tying into. But I just found that stuff out. And there's even points throughout the game, particularly in Act 2, as you progress Act 2, you know, after Sayori's suicide and before Monica, or before Yuri kills herself. If you go into the file system outside in that menu, Monica adds a few files in there that are, again, disturbing as hell. She adds this PNG file. It's an image titled "Happy Thoughts" with X's replacing some of the vowels, and it's a crudely drawn, like, crayon picture of Sayori with like a big red block over her eyes. And there's like an additional file that you can find at some point that's just a ton of eyes, and it's implied that it's written by Monica, and she's just like, why can't I get what I want? Why is he still trying to talk to them? I want him to talk to me, and like stuff like that. And you don't know, but it's implied that it's written by Monica. And I think there's another one that's like an additional poem that you can find in the file system. But anyway, point being, the Plus edition kind of had to add that virtual desktop for consoles, because obviously we can't go digging around in the PlayStation 5's or PlayStation 4's file system to delete these files. So they added that virtual desktop, but that plays into something else that I don't want to talk about quite yet, but it adds a whole new layer of like kind of brilliance to this whole game and this whole world that Salvato's kind of created.
So I have a question now because you're making me think. I didn't unlock all the files, which I probably will at some point, but I definitely needed a break from the game.
Yeah, I don't blame
you. There was this image I got of all the 4 girls in like Halloween costumes with like, and they're going in the Halloween candy. Did that image pop up because of the time of year, or do you have to, or does it just like?
No, it says at the bottom if you unlock like a CG or a background or any of the things that you unlock in the pictures folder, it tells you at the bottom what you had to do to unlock them. And I think
Okay.
for the Halloween one, you just had to select the word horror during the poem minigame.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's a few others that you can unlock. Like if you select kawaii during one of them, you unlock a picture. If you select Doki Doki during the poem minigame, you unlock another picture. It's very specific words
Gotcha.
that you select during that, and you'll unlock a picture.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's a ton of other things that you have to do to unlock all of them. I won't get into it now. And like it was fun to do. I mean, as fun as it could be for a fucking disturbing as hell visual novel. But like it's just the amount of depth that went into some of that stuff. It felt like a pretty decent reward because you unlocked like you could unlock promo art that had never even been released publicly, and like I'm a sucker for that stuff. I love seeing like concept art of games, especially when it's like an unlockable in the game. It's not something you have to pay for
Yeah.
after the fact. I think it's so great to see that stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I'm glad though to hear that you just had to select a word because I was a little freaked out that like I was playing this for Halloween and I got
Yeah.
like this cool Halloween image of them, which then you can make your desktop background, but Monica wouldn't let me do that at first. It wasn't
Yeah.
until later when I deleted her that I was able to add it.
And yeah, sitting in that section where Monica is she's won, right? She's got you. She's romanced you forcefully, but she's done it. During that, like there's 50 some odd things that she'll talk to you about. She'll just sit there and talk to you. Jason, I'm sure you know. Like I sat there for a while because I'm like, okay, when's she gonna run out of things to say? She fucking doesn't for a long time. She will
Yeah.
talk to you about a ton of stuff.
And you know how long it is when I say that when I was doing it, she started repeating herself, and that's when I got clued into the fact that okay, this isn't ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, so deleting her character file, like you back out to the menu. Oh, and like you can't save at that point either. She like if you even go to save the game, she's like,
Yes.
"Oh, what do you
Don't
what do you
worry,
need to
I'm not
save
going
for?"
anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I'm just like, "Oh my god." It's stuff like that too that just freaked me the fuck out. Or even when the text boxes would pop up, leading up to that, where it was like just Monica, and then there was a text box that said just Monica. You press OK, and it goes back out as if it's loading the game. It's like do 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 do, and the message pops up saying just Monica, and then it loads you right back in. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's good.
It's just yeah, I feel like this is just me bringing up every little thing that scared me
No,
but made me
I'm
love this
glad.
game.
I mean, I was curious about a lot of that stuff because I didn't go down the rabbit hole yet of like platinuming it and then looking up other things people have discovered, which like very, very cool for a seemingly dating sim.
Yeah. And like something as not to belittle visual novels, but something as simple as a visual novel,
Yeah.
it has a ton of depth.
I wonder how Yoko Taro feels about this game.
Yoko Taro's like, I'm gonna make a fucking visual novel. It's gonna be the next it's gonna be the next Nier game. It's just a visual novel.
Aren't there already Nier visual novels?
I mean there's the novel sections in the games that you loved so much.
I thought I thought in Japan they already had Nier visual.
I don't think so.
Probably.
Yeah. There's lots of novels. There's lots of light novels, but those are actual physical books, not
Yeah, they're like kind of pulp picture books type deal. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, deleting Monica's character model. It's funny because she's like, she's like, "Oh, you make me sick. I can't believe you would do this to me." And then there's after she gets deleted, she's kind of silent, and then or there's silence, it's a black screen, and then she tells you, "I still love you, and I forgive you, and you know what? I didn't actually delete them. Let me right this wrong because I really betrayed my friends like this, and I can't believe I would do that." And she restores everyone, and you kind of start the game over again, except Sayori is now the club president because Monica doesn't exist, and this is kind of, I feel, an overlooked reveal, and I'm curious to know if you guys picked up on it, where Sayori suddenly takes on the same personality and abilities as Monica. And she's like, "I wanted to thank you for getting rid of Monica. Yeah, I know everything that happened, and now we can be together forever and ever."
Yeah,
and ever.
I did notice that.
Now, and the implication there is that it's the position of being the club president that gives that elevated access within the game. So now Sayori being the president, she has those features and she has those abilities, and she starts to almost repeat the same cycle until Monica steps in and says, "Okay, no, there's no happiness here." And then the credits roll. And how did you guys feel about that ending?
I was like, "You're right. You're right. Thank you. I did not want to do this again."
That's the whole point of subverting that kind of visual novel romance genre is like not gonna get any happiness from a bunch of fake anime girls. I mean, you'll get temporary happiness. Yeah. You won't get real happiness.
That's true.
I wonder if there's a sick fuck out there who refuses to delete Monica because he feels like this is like,
and like
his baby.
It
logs into her every day like, "Hey, baby girl, how you doing?"
I feel bad. I feel bad even calling them that because there are people out there that like play these things because they feel lonely and like they want that satisfaction.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so
insensitive. By the way, I've said anime girls a bunch of times just for posterity, so everybody listening to this knows. I play a fucking MMO with fucking bikini-clad cat girls in it. Like, all right, yeah. I'm not judging.
In Mint Dew in the Crystarium on the Genova server, she's probably still sitting in front of the Aetheryte, dancing away, wearing a bikini because she does that every day. I literally get
private messages every day about exotic role playing in Final Fantasy 14, so I'm not judging.
Yeah, the fucking weird nightclubs. It's something else. But anyway, yeah. I don't. Yeah, I feel bad about like talking or belittling like people that play stuff like this because I see the value in it. It's not like there's anything wrong with it, but like again, this game like is a satire of that kind of thing. It is like kind of a deconstruction of that kind of thing. And that being said, like it's a weird intimate feeling in that section where Monica is just staring at you and having idle chit chat with you and I feel like it's more intimate than any other visual novel probably ever gets because she isn't talking to a virtual protagonist. She's talking to us.
Yeah.
She's talking directly to me or Delaila or Jason. And
it's the game actually giving the player the wish fulfillment that they're actually looking for, right, that all the other games tease them with throughout, but never give to them, actually. Yeah,
it's such a weird feeling because it almost did feel nice having just like this person sit across from you and just talk to you about stuff. It's a weird feeling. And I go ahead.
I was just saying, I don't think it felt nice. I was freaked out by it. I was like,
so was I, but
get the fuck off my console right now, please. When I realized I could delete her, I was like, delete. Like,
Get
but
out of here.
The things that were coming out of her mouth, I was like, facts. Like, I vibed with what she was, some of the like philosophical things she was talking about. I was like, I could listen to her. Like, she was not saying anything that I was annoyed by. So I was like, in that way, I kind of get what you're saying. But her face, like, just being there the whole time, like, staring into your eyes, I was like, Oh god, no, like I can't.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those people that saved Monica so I could talk to her if I ever felt like talking to her. Like, I didn't do that, but
if you did,
it just elicited a very unique and strange feeling that you don't get much from many games, and you probably don't get from many visual novels, because no visual novel is talking to us. It's always talking to the character in the game that you're kind of controlling, so to speak. And like after that point, like that character that you name in the game doesn't talk. Like for the rest of the game, they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just us and just Monica.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling. And
definitely weird, yeah.
And it's just the fact that it's so unique is why I love it so much. Because it is creepy and eerie and awful, and what she did to get us there too is terrible.
Yep.
But it's still just like, I don't know. It's kind of it was weirdly nice once you get like just set all that aside, and it's just you talking to somebody, and like that's what they were trying to go for. That weird feeling of just like an intimate conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like it's even weirder with how like it's one of like 2 songs in the entire game that's like eerie and just like not like happy and cheerful. It's very moody and dreary, and outside the windows it's like this weird like almost supernova effect that's shining in, and it's a very aesthetically it's a very dark image.
Yeah. If you're someone that still has Monica and you log into her because you feel this level of intimacy, I'm so sorry I called you a sick fuck. I shouldn't have done that. But I hope that you find a human being that makes you feel that good. That's it. Or
agree.
better.
I agree. I agree with that. I find it. I also thinking about this. I find this conversation really funny when like I can see at the corner of my eye Monica just like right here.
Yeah, I'm trying not to look.
I just have the game.
I'm so tired of her face.
The other thing I wanted to talk about with Monica is well actually before we talk about that, I want to talk about the credits, because it's the only voice in the game, and it's Monica talking to you.
Yeah.
And like earlier in the game, like she talks about how she was learning piano, and I actually thought that was a misdirection, because I thought she was doing something sinister, right? And that's why she was always late to the club, or she was doing something sinister to fuck with the girls. No, she really was learning piano because she was learning a song for us and played it while she was deleting all the files for the game.
I'm so stupid I didn't connect that. I was going to ask you why she was late, but I remember the song and I should have. That's brilliant. Cool.
It's the same song. It's the same song that plays during most of the game, isn't it?
Yeah. But she's actually singing.
She actually wrote. She actually wrote lyrics for it and sings it for you and plays it for you on piano.
And she sounds really sweet. I'm like, oh, she sounds like nice, like a nice girl.
Yeah.
You know,
like a little schoolgirl. Yeah.
And I believe the woman's name that does the voice and also does the singing is Jillian Ashcraft. Yes, Jillian Ashcraft. Yeah, the only voice in the game, and it's like I said, like this whole game just gives so many feelings that are at war with each other, right? It's like at one moment it's like the sweetest, nicest thing, and then the next it's like punching you square in the face with its grim imagery and freaky things. But that the credits where like she's deleting everything, and it's like it's supposed to be really sad, but you can't help but feel good about it because she's playing and performing this very cheerful song with you with like love song lyrics, where she's just talking about how badly she wants to be with you, and it's like it's obsessive. It's creepy, but it's also kind of nice, and it makes you feel good. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I feel like I'm the weirdo where I'm like, oh, this kind of felt nice, and you guys are like,
I don't think if it didn't feel nice for me, but I can definitely understand that perspective
yeah,
because, like, yeah, it for me it was just manipulative and gross, and I just
oh
wanted
yeah,
to
for
delete
sure,
her. And it is that way, but I can see like I don't know, like a guy like being like, oh, this is despite all this, like this is kind of nice. I'm not saying you're like that, but I could
right,
see that perspective. But think about if Monica was a guy, this was a dating sim full of hot anime
yeah,
husbandos. I think that would have been a lot more. I think had it been flipped, it would have been a lot darker and gross. Like,
mhm.
because I mean, not to say men don't get stalked, but I think women get stalked on like a whole nother level. And like
Oh,
Monica's a
absolutely,
stalker. She's a stalker that's trying to ruin the life. Like, if I can't have you, no one can have you kind of perspective. And it's just it's very interesting to talk about and to think about. But
Yeah,
I,
at that point in that game, it didn't feel like I agree with a lot. It didn't feel nice to me, especially because at that, like I had said earlier, at that point I realized about the time, like it was definitely confirmed at least when you get to the point where Sayuri starts asking you about Yuri, and then right at the point where Monica goes over and decides to talk with Sayuri without you being able to hear what's going on. I'm like, bitch, what you saying to my girl? She's going through some shit. Get the fuck away from her. And I was just pissed that I couldn't like interact with that at
right.
all. And at that point, I was like actively trying to prevent Sayori from doing some shit.
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess to like kind of explain what I mean, like obviously I'm not discrediting like it like it is manipulative and it is awful and she is stalking you. That like that is very very explicitly what she's doing, right? By
Mhm.
my feeling of by saying that it kind of feels nice. I just mean like the intimacy of the conversation and the song that she plays
Right.
for you, like what she's putting out there is nice. What she did to get there can't be ignored, though.
Yeah, yeah, of
Now,
course.
I'm not trying to say like, oh no, Monica's great. Like, no, not at all. I
No,
don't want to come off.
I know. And I think the game wants that like that dichotomy of like warmth
Yeah,
and horror. You know.
yeah. And also to just put it out there, um, I do like live with my girlfriend. I am not like a lonely person that like, you know, felt the warmth because I have no company. Like, I just wanted to make sure that that's understood, that like I'm
This
not
is
coming off of that perspective. Um,
this is
it's
golden content.
this, yeah, fucking, this is the quality content that you come to us for. Is I don't even know. God. Okay. So after, yeah, the last thing I want to point out about Monica is, after you guys finished the game, did you go into the files and press the reset file to reset the game?
No.
I did, but I didn't do anything further from that. I don't think.
Okay. So like when you do that, like you get like a a command line script that runs, and you get to see the commands that are running to reset the game and restore the deleted characters. And you see three files getting restored, that don't have any name other than like a bunch of letters and numbers, but you see the fourth file get restored that has an additional name attached to it, and that name is
Paula?
no.
Oh.
It's monitor kernel access.
Mm. Is that connecting to the Colonel Sanders dating sim?
No. No,
Oh,
no, no.
okay.
Oh, no, sorry. Kernel being spelled KERNEL.
Oh, okay.
Like a kernel within your CPU.
Mm.
Um Monitor
I should
kernel
have looked this.
access.
I should have looked this up. Mondo also has a biblical name. It's a Jewish name. It also has a Hebrew name in origin. It has a biblical meaning
Mm.
that I
Well,
forget. But
the intent.
I always associate it with the character Monica from Friends because
Mm.
it's
Oh,
usually the name is associated with that character the controlling. That's what.
Okay.
That's where I thought the name kind of came from.
That's a neat way of looking at it, but monitor kernel access is supposed to be her name. The Mana part of monitor, kernel access, KA, Monica. That's kind of like a realization while the game is resetting. If you see that in the script that's running, that's there, and it's like, holy shit. Like she has elevated access from everyone else. She has kernel access to the VM that it's hosted in, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But yeah, I thought that was like a fucking what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
If like you didn't understand like what she was before that, like that'll really clue you in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the original biblical meaning of the name is unique, to advise, alone, ruin, solitary.
Pretty fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to that. So, all right. God, where do? Is there anything else with the story you guys want to talk about? Like any questions you wanted to bring up? Any conversation topics to discuss about the plot?
I want to know more about Natsuki because in my playthrough, I didn't learn enough about her. Like, was there anything besides what we talked about already that I may have missed?
I mean, pretty much just that, yeah, because they like, unless you go looking for it and really romance her, I mean, she's the character that the game kind of goes into the least.
Yeah, okay, so that was purposeful, right?
I mean, yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
And I think
they're
I
specifically
also
setting you up to be standoffish with her, yeah.
and
Okay.
I even saw an interview or a line from an interview with Dan Salvato where that's the one character that he wishes he could have or would have fleshed out a little more. And it shows in the game. But I mean, her dad is very clearly abusive, emotionally and sometimes physically. There's a special poem you can unlock that is pretty implied to be written by her, where it's all about her dad, and it's very chilling. Where it's just like, I like it when dad has food on the table. I like it when dad she calls him Papa. I like it when Papa has food on the table. I like it when Papa leaves food in the house. I like it when Papa is nice to me. And it very clearly illustrates, you know, what's going on with her with her home life. And the implication with her stature, because they bring up the fact that she's very short when compared to the other girls. The implication is that she's, and also talking about like maybe not getting to or eating as much as she can when she gets home for dinner and whatnot, is she's seemingly malnourished. And that's kind of had an adverse effect on her development. So yeah, subtle stuff. Like with her character, it's much more subtle because we don't get much background on her character. So I kind of want to talk about Delaila, about Natsuki. Is that like, was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or?
No, I didn't know if she would have a dark ending like Sayori or Yuri did. I assume she would have, but it seems like it's like not like that.
There's like the thing that I told you about where like her neck snaps and she rushes toward you, but then the game immediately loads back in and she's fine. The next big thing I should say is what this plus release kind of, what it has to change to make it work on consoles, and what it kind of adds to the meta going on with this game. Because when the initial release came out, like I said, it's just an executable and you had to go into the file structure in the actual like install that you have installed in your computer to delete the characters. With the Plus edition, they added this virtual desktop for Metaverse Enterprise Solutions. And what that kind of seemingly is what they're kind of trying to frame that as is, this company is what created this game, and it was kind of like a test to see the extent that they could make like a virtual character like the lengths that they would go to do certain things. And as you unlock items in the pictures and like music items, as you unlock things, and particularly as you do the side stories that they added in the plus version, you unlock emails from employees at this company that kind of hint at what's going on with these VMs. And I was actually really annoyed at first because I was doing these side stories, and the thing about the side stories, there's 6 of them, with like a bonus epilogue one after, and the girls are like pretty much like Monica isn't self-aware, and the protagonist isn't even in the side stories. They're just talking and hanging out with each other. And I was like, well, why it completely destroys the meta of the main game if there's no protagonist and there's no player, and they're not all trying to romance the player. You're just giving backstory for characters that don't really need the backstory, until I started unlocking and reading some of those emails. And then I came back around and was like, fuck, this is actually brilliant. And that's where you find out that the main game is like hosted on its own VM, and that's where they're testing. Monica has elevated access, and she becomes self-aware, and she's doing everything she can to be with the player. These side stories are actually hosted in a completely separate VM, a virtual machine, by the way, in case I haven't said what that stands for. They're hosted in a separate VM, totally separate landscape from the main game, and Monica doesn't have that that elevated access and that elevated self-awareness. So they're just kind of letting it play out how these girls interact with each other. And I totally came back around on it. I was like, I went from hating it to loving it. I was like, holy shit. Like, they're doing something meta within another meta. It's fucking brilliant. I love it. And those side stories, if you like the characters at all, if you found them even remotely endearing, and you want more endearing and more meaningful interactions between them that aren't just fighting over us, the side stories are worth it.
I feel like it's for it's for people who are already into this genre.
Yeah.
Who maybe wanted more of what the genre typically offers.
And also because so many people did fall in love, so to speak, with these characters, just like enjoying them and enjoying like the type of characters they are. It's more kind of like stories with them and more background with them, but without all the horror elements. It really is just like slice of life stuff. Just as a minor spoiler, within the first side story, Sayori does open up to Monica about the fact that she's depressed. She like even writes a note to her, like just telling her like, sometimes I want to die. And Monica talks her through that and tries to help her out and tell her and encourage her that like, no, like, you're my friend and I don't want anything to happen to you. And it's really sweet because like, even with all the fucked up shit that happens in this game, you kind of do, you get an attachment to these characters because you're ultimately trying to romance one of them, so these side stories do give like very nice and tonally opposite stories involving all of these characters, and I do think they're worthwhile. And like,
it almost makes it seem like like the problem isn't Monica, it's the player. Like once you're inserted into the formula, everything's fine.
I mean, he says it like every other line. Like, I don't think Sayori realizes why I'm actually here. Like,
because like the game is very much trying to fool you into thinking it's a totally normal visual novel. Several times the player or the main character says like, oh, an opportunity to hang out with 4 super cute girls. Why would I not do that? And it's just a typical dating sim from there. Well, for a little while.
You get to pricking each other's fingers with knife collections and sucking the blood. Yeah.
But the side stories, they're much sweeter, and there's like nothing really bad happens. Like I said, the hardest it goes is at the very first one where Sayori opens up to Monica about her depression, and after that, it's just there's like a side con or a side one each side story like focuses on the interaction between two of the characters, and they kind of have some sort of conflict. Like there's one where Sayori is trying really hard to be into Yuri's fantasy novels, and Yuri kind of takes it as like Sayori doesn't actually like it, and she's just not telling her, and Yuri would just rather her tell her outright she doesn't like it. And Sayori is trying to work through that conflict of, no, I am liking it, it's just not my usual thing, and like trying to repair that rift. And that there's 6 of those stories. Again, they're sweet, they're nice. It's nothing like the main game. There's nothing that's gonna freak the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And it gives more for those characters. And again, like I thought that was kind of just like unnecessary to do until I started unlocking emails that explained this is a separate VM. This is a separate reality from the one of the main game where we're testing something, where this company, Metaverse Enterprise Solutions, is testing something completely different. And if you get 100% completion, unlocking everything you can, you actually unlock another test VM where you go to load it, and it starts running a script that looks kind of corrupted, and there's some sort of line there that is kind of out of place with the rest of the game, and seemingly people think that that has something to do with Dan Salvato's next project, which is called Project Libitina. And that's
Oh
kind of
God.
where I think there's some references in some of the files in the game that kind of are referencing this upcoming project that Salvato's been working on. And that's like including that image, that scrambled image on Natsuki's character file that you can see if you have it downloaded on PC. And there's like a website that has ciphers on it, and people have been trying to figure that out. It's awesome. It's ridiculously crazy, but it's awesome how deep people are going down this rabbit hole trying to figure this out, and how this might be tied in with this company that they invented for the Plus edition of the game. It's and it's really got me excited. I'm really looking forward to whatever the fuck is gonna come out of this. Especially if
Yeah.
it's even remotely related. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
That's cool that it rewards you for doing everything in that kind of way, where you could kind of peek into what's next.
Yeah, and that's also kind of why, like earlier, I alluded to like how I felt like doing some things to unlock like some of the pictures and concept art was rewarding. It's also rewarding because the more that stuff you unlock, the more you start getting these emails from these fictional employees at this fictional company that seemingly invented this, and like their plans and like what they're talking about. And like there's even an email about them talking about the ethics of like what Monica's doing and everything, and they're like, well, everything's fictional, so can we really talk about human ethics when everything is just virtualized in this very contained environment? And it's like just really interesting shit like that. And what's also interesting is that the physical edition comes with a business card for a random employee at this company,
Cool.
where and like I subscribe after beating the game. I subscribe to the subreddit, and like people are sharing which business cards for who they got, and they're trying to compile the
People
entire.
got different names.
Yeah, there's different. Each one has like a different business card, and I think there's like maybe 6 in total. So people are sharing like all the employee names, and like they show up in some of those emails in the game, and they've compiled like all the information on those business cards, and it's like it looks really real. It's just the meta that's going on right now is a whole other story, and I don't know enough about it to really speak much more to it. I just really wanted to bring it up because it's really fucking cool and adds a
Yeah,
whole
that
nother
is
layer to
cool.
this game.
Wow, had no idea.
Yeah. But is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to the final question? I feel like we've covered pretty much everything to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Surprisingly draining for a 4-hour game, yeah.
Yeah,
For
really.
sure.
All right. A little bit of a cheeky final question, but who is best girl? The question has to be asked.
Sayori.
Sayori? Okay.
I'm the best girl
Easy.
since
Girl next
I'm
door,
part
yeah.
of the game.
No answer can beat Delilah's, so I think we're just done.
No,
Yeah.
I don't fuck all of them, honestly.
Well, I guess here's who did you gravitate towards?
I'm just
romancing
picturing
the first
Delilah
time?
sitting there be like these. Oh God.
Listen, facade. Superficially, I like the purple hair on Yuri. That's the superficial stuff. So,
Okay.
and she seemed like she was into cool shit, but once again, the game is kind of manipulating you to feel that way. The only one that I didn't feel disturbed by in any way was Natsuki. So I would say her just because like she's the only one that didn't make me uncomfortable. And I think that's because the developer didn't go into her as much. Like she was just a victim in the situation. Not to say Sayuri and Yuri weren't victimized in some way. They didn't get into that though.
Yeah.
And
like even in spite of like what they wind up doing, it's like they like even Yuri with how her traits get so amplified and accentuated in the second act of the game. Like she's still at the end of the day also a victim. They're all victims of Monica, really.
Right.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
We're victims of Monica.
We are, and us too. We are victims of Monica because at the end of the day, it's all her fault. She did this to all of us.
If you really want to get meta, they're all victims, including Monica, of what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
They're all victims of the metaverse of the company Metaverse Enterprise Solutions. Apparently, like that's seemingly where the game is going now. Okay, and then what was, I guess, another question? I don't know. I don't know your guys' answer to this. What was the thing that scared you the most? What was your, in your opinion, the best scare this game gave?
I would say the suicide was the most impactful for me. After that, I expected all of them to. I actually thought Yuri was gonna be homicidal instead of suicidal at first.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, she was looking at my finger. That was weird. But yeah, I think also just the way the eyes change on Yuri when she had those like crazy eyes. That was like stuck in my head, but I think nothing beats the disturbing image of seeing Sayori hung in her bedroom.
Got it, yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out about that's so fucked up, and I didn't realize it until the last playthrough that I did, because after, in most visual novels, and this one included, like after you see a specific line of text, the game lets you skip it, like by pressing that skip button. And so I was doing that for most of it until I was trying to unlock the stuff that you get for by romancing all three girls at the same time by manipulating saves and stuff. So I had to kind of stop before it got to Sayori's room. So I would stop at the day of the festival with Monica. And I got to see some of what she was saying before you rush back to Sayori's house. And one of the things she says to you, because Monica is self-aware and she knows everything that's going on, and she knows that you didn't go wake up Sayori. She says to the player, "You kind of left Sayori hanging this morning."
Oh, yeah, that's
like,
wow.
What the fuck?
Damn.
But Jason, what was the most effective scare for you?
Probably you referenced it earlier, where Yuri goes out to get tea water, and you follow her out in the hallway, and she just turns around and has all the cuts on her arm, and then it just
zips back,
rewinds the entire thing. And then all of a sudden you start getting the weird distorted music, you start getting the weird lines, the faces start getting all pixelated. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say for me, like we talked about them both already. It was definitely like when you had to pick between Yuri and Natsuki, and every time you select one, it just keeps zooming in on them and zooming in on them and zooming in on them until Monika's face is right there. And then the other one being where, like I told you guys, where if you quickly when you have the choices of who to or who to help that weekend, and they always change it to Monika, but if you're fast enough to switch it and select another one of the girls, the music stopping, the white screen, and just the two eyeballs staring at you.
That's crazy.
Fucking just I'll tell you guys right now, like this became one of my favorite horror games of all time. It's just so good at what it does, and it's one of the scariest things I've ever played because of how uncomfortable it makes me, and just the length it goes to make you feel like shit. It's amazing, and like it really is. And it's awful, but it's amazing.
Yeah, the way it's done really well. I try to separate like scary horror from like disturbing horror. Like I love like a Conjuring movie, but I hate Midsummer because it's like that disturbing versus like I like scary shit. I like atmosphere. I like the Silent Hills, the Resident Evils, like dark, hallways and like kind of like fantasy. Like it's not real. Shit like that just doesn't happen. Whereas this is like disturbing because that shit could happen.
But you
yes, I hate Midsummer. That movie, it's done very well for what it is intending to do. It's done very well, but I hated. I regret watching it. It was that disturbing, which it's supposed to be, right? So this game kind of has that kind of vibe as well, where it's so disturbing that I hate it. But like, I don't want to play it again. But I'm also a platinum horror, so I'm like struggling between those two things right now. But
it's really funny.
It was just too disturbing.
It's really funny that's the example you bring up, because what I've been telling my friends on how to describe my feelings about this game is I have not felt this fucked up since I watched Midsummer.
Wow.
And I've been Katie for I want to say Christmas last year got me the 4K director's cut of Midsummer, and I'm like, wow, this is great. I have no idea when I'm going to be ready to watch this movie again. Like,
never throw it in the garbage.
Because like I said, I have not after playing this game, I have not felt this like after playing this game, I was just so emotionally drained and just distraught, and I haven't felt like that since watching Midsummer. And after watching that movie, it was the same feeling. And then since that, I hadn't felt the same way since I watched Requiem for a Dream. Not even a horror movie. It's more of like just a psychological thriller, but that also just fucked me up irreparably. Yeah.
And I mean, not to get too into Midsummer, but the theming's very similar in terms of like there's no cult shit, but like just like how it's like bright and beautiful, and like the end is kind of like there's like a comfort happening, even though like all this fucked up shit, So it has that same kind of theming. So it's interesting that we both thought of that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Yeah, the thing, and also like even goes down to like the manipulation. Not to spoil or talk too much about Midsummer, but like there was a lot of manipulation behind the scenes going on in that movie. That it kind of isn't seen until it's too late. And not even from a specific individual, but by like a whole community. Yeah, and yeah, it's really funny that we both thought of Midsummer in the wake of this game. But okay, do you guys have any other closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
We should have just done what Nicolas Cage does in that crap. Why can't I remember the name of the movie? The Island with the cult of women with the bees.
The
He just
Wicker
goes around
Man?
punching them. The Wicker Man, yeah.
I never saw that.
The waifus, they're in my eyes. Delaila, what you working on? Oh, wait. Sorry. I keep forgetting this and getting ahead of myself. Jason, what's the Kwasnicki rating on this? Uh-oh. Is he frozen?
Yeah, with that
Oh,
face,
no. Yeah,
like
that
he was
face.
about to give the most
That itself
frolic
is a
score.
that itself is a fucking psychological scare right there. Jason, are you with us?
Yeah, I it just froze and came back.
Okay. What? Okay. Let's back up.
I was about
Let's
to
see.
disconnect and then it came back and I was like,
Oh,
oh,
okay. Cool.
Monica's glitching
Well,
him.
did we scare you?
yeah.
What's the Kwasnicki rating on this one?
Um, I think it's 7.
Okay.
It's good.
7 what?
The only reason I give it a 7 is because I'm gonna be completely honest. There's a lot of personal bias that goes into it. I just would have preferred a little more interactivity. I know that's not what the genre is, and that's probably just a byproduct of the genre not being my sort of thing. I also part of the reason, and to be fair, this game did show me that I could have fun with the genre because as morose as a lot of this shit is that we're talking about, I did have fun and enjoy what the game was doing to an extent. But my eyes were kind of open to the possibilities of what this genre is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, part of the reason I have actively avoided this genre in the past is because I'm not into the whole slice of life thing. If it was like another genre, like I don't know, fantasy or sci-fi or something, I don't know, I might be able to get into like a visual novel, but as it stands, a lot of it is more personal taste, so don't take my rating really to mean anything with this one.
And that's kind of why that's a big reason why I wanted to open with Dan Salvato's note after you get the good end. Oh, by the way, that good ending. After if you romance all 3 girls during the same run, instead of Sayori thanking the player for deleting Monica, she thanks you. It's a much more positive, optimistic ending. She thanks you for spending so much time with everybody, and saying like, yeah, like you really didn't want any of us to be sad. You really wanted to make us all happy, and we really appreciate that. So thank you.
Mm,
And
that's cool.
it ends on a much more positive note, and you get the note from Dan Salvato. And yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to open with that note, because he talks about like this genre and how, and a lot of it goes into how he satirized it and kind of broke it down and deconstructed it. But he really wanted, he said that he thinks it's capable of things, and he kind of wanted to show an example of what he thinks it could be capable of. And I think that is really special.
For sure.
And I think for a visual novel as well, like, I mean, it was ladle mechanics, right? There was the poetry mechanic where you kind of craft poems just by selecting words that lean one way or the other. So it's pretty light in that regard, but he did try to do something different, and even within those slice of life sections, and I think that's still really, really cool. But I'm not surprised that it didn't drive well with you. It's kind of why I was very adamant about convincing you guys to do this game, because I did think at the end of the day it would be worthwhile with what I had known about it, that it was really a psychological horror game masked as a very cheesy looking visual novel. Again, not knowing the full extent of what it would do to fuck us up. And again, I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I agree with everything both of you said. Just like it opened up my mind to what a visual novel could be. I would have never played it otherwise.
Yeah. Jason, 7 what? You gotta quantify that, man.
I don't know, 7 bites of chocolate. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh God.
You could have just gone with poems, but All right,
Or
Delaila,
Monica's.
or Monica's. No. Just one Monica. Just Monica. There's no
Yeah.
Monicas. It's just Monica. Okay. Delaila, what are you working on?
I've been streaming the next game that we're gonna play and Back for Blood on Twitch, .tv/assassina_sun. And they've been slowing down on YouTube content. Gonna continue to slow down now that we're getting into the holidays, but have a review for Deathloop coming up and some other stuff. I just finished Death's Door on there, and yeah, that's about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
For me, I've plugged this the last few times. And again, it's coming this month. I think actually they just went to the printing press. From Gamers Magazine, I did a review of Scarlet Nexus for them. It's an independent magazine. Issue 2 comes out this month. You can go buy it at fromgamers.net. You can get a digital or a physical issue. They're a cool. It's a cool thing, and I've been supporting them for the past few months. And yeah, if you're into independent like magazine publishing, and you're into video games, I recommend it. And I have an article in there, so yeah, check it out.
Cool.
Jason, you working on anything? Anything you want to share?
I work on things I don't want to share it though.
That's fine. You can follow me on Twitter at Nibelheimi, and you could follow Delaila on Twitter at Assassina_san. You could follow Jason on Twitter at SolidQuaz, but don't follow him. He doesn't do anything on Twitter. If you liked this episode, if you're watching on YouTube,
Social media is the mind killer.
It really is. God. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you, first of all. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Put it in the comments. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Obviously, a thumbs up is preferred, by the way. If you're going to give us a thumbs down, I'd be really sad. But also share the episode. Subscribe to the channel. If you are listening on the audio version of the podcast, thank you again. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, a rate and review, it does wonders. Please rate and review the show. 5 stars preferred. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. If you want to let us know in the YouTube comments, by the way, who you thought was best girl or what your favorite scare from the game, if you want to let us know, please, we would love if you told us. And yeah, share the show. And Jason, what's our next game? What are we talking about?
Talking about Alan Wake. I'm pretty excited for this.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
I never played this.
It's a good game. I only played it for the first time last year. I will say, so Alan Wake much easier to find now because they just put out the remaster. That's available on PS4, PS5, I think PC as well, Xbox Series X and S, and I think Xbox One. It comes with the 2 DLC, and what I'll tell you guys about those 2 DLC, they're basically a continuation of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's practically like 2 mini sequels that just keep the story going. They're kind of important when talking about the game.
Okay.
So if you're gonna listen to the next episode, I definitely say like play Alan Wake, but also make sure you play the 2 DLCs, The Signal and The Writer. And then yeah, we hope that you tune in next month or next episode. I don't know when it'll be coming out. I don't know if it's next month or not, but we'll see. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye, folks.